all due respect. LeBron James is better with all due respect.
What's up, everybody? It is time for MLB Live Before Lock. Eric and myself breaking down another slate yesterday. I think it'd been a pretty good one for me. I'm not exactly sure. Ended up going for our friend Eric over there, but we got another slate to break down here. Do us a favor as you come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you got any questions for us over the course of the show, if you're a stochastic sub, one of the perks of having a membership to our site, you get access to our Discord channel. You can at me at any point in time, really over the course of the day, the night, whenever it may be, or during one of our shows, we'll answer one of your guys' questions. So hit me up if you got questions there. If you're in the YouTube chat, leave us a super chat if you want to get some questions across to us. And yeah, we could build some lineups in the single lineup sim. So if you guys do have any lineups you want Jordan to sim for you later on in the show, throw those into the YouTube chat there, and we'll check those out, or in the Discord channel as well. But Eric, what's up, man?
How much? Ended up having a really good day too. Thanks to you partially. I had some stuff with my spreadsheet that I had to get figured out, and holy crap, the Corey Seager thing was useful. That was useful. Ended up being my highest owned batter when I did not want that at all, but I kind of was like getting down to the wire, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna roll with it. And so shout out to you of all people. Got a ton of closing line value on a ton of bets today. Feeling pretty good about that. Yeah, how's your day going?
I've just been busy with meetings and whatnot, and now we got this baseball slate to break down. What are some of the bets that you placed that at some closing line value? And where might people be able to find more of those bets also?
Yeah, you could jump over to the OS Marketplace, jump into the Lindy package, come kick it. You want to see my package? You have an opportunity to do so for $19.99. You never know what images I'm going to upload over there, but got a number of different bets. Have a couple of, well, let me just grab them here while I'm talking about it. The under of 8.5 total runs for St. Louis Cincy. I got it at even money. It is now at -115, best available line. -110 for the over of 8 runs for Atlanta and San Francisco, kind of going the inverse of yesterday, where I kind of in jest said on a Kyle Kerm show where I was like, I should bet 1-0 exact score because I'm pretty positive that Blake Snell and Chris Sale both deal, and boy, oh God, did they. But I'm on the over of that one today. And then Arizona on the run line. I thought that was pretty simple. It's going like, what, 4 cents, 8 cents of closing value, but still feel pretty good about that one. They're going to be favorites and chalk, and we'll talk about all the ins and outs of the slate, but Dodgers, they're going to be my big stand for the day, and that line has not moved. So, of course, I will be in shambles after they get murdered.
PJ in the chat wants to know, can you see his hog? Yeah, that's easy. You don't even have to pay for that. All you have to do is pay Eric a compliment, and the pants fall off. That's something that I've learned over my time being a friend with them, as well as working, being his boss, things along those lines.
Ooh.
That's
the Eagles. In a New York minute from the Eagles.
Sing him a song. Just in New York. Another way to get his pants to come off. Pretty simple.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty simple stuff. Actually, pretty interesting. Byron Paulson in the chat asked us a question about our simulation tool and how to manipulate some of the exposures. He said, what is the best way to decrease exposure to a pitcher or stack? Do you put an exposure cap, or do you ROI boost to other pitchers and stacks? So you could do a negative ROI boost. It doesn't only have to be positive. There's a pitcher or a stack that you have a lot of that you just want to mute your exposure to. If there's a specific number, yeah, you could do the exposure cap and that'll get you an exact number. What you could also do is you could do like a negative 10% ROI boost, negative 15% ROI boost, which Jordan's doing on screen right now, to an individual player. And then when you unfavor your lineup, refavor the top 150, that will also go ahead and lower some of your exposures. For other people in the chat are wondering, Joseph Colon, potentially a relative of Bartolo Colon, he wants to know, am I saying that Eric is for the streets? You're damn right. That's what I'm saying. Eric is absolutely for the streets, and we love him for it, but that's something he doesn't try to be anything different.
I hate it here.
There we go. So it's probably time to go ahead and start talking some baseball today. Off the bat here, any weather concerns that are on your mind for today? It looks like it should be clean, right?
Nope, I got nothing.
Got
some wind. We'll talk wind. Ooh, there's slight wind blowing out in Anaheim today. Oh, there's some small, yeah, there's really nothing that I'm seeing.
All right, let's talk pitchers. And if we look at the slate, one thing that's been happening a whole lot as of late is the chalk has been with the really expensive spend up pitchers. And that's again the case today. If you
Wait.
look at the pitcher exposure,
You're
there's
bearing
only
the lead.
one.
You're bearing the lead. What the hell happened with Luis Heel yesterday?
Yeah, it was very bizarre because he was like double his projected ownership when he was expected to be on an innings limit, which is going to be the case for the rest of the year. So I went into building my lineups thinking like, hey, Luis Heel looks decent. I'm going to be a little bit overweight to the field on him. And I was so far underweight to the field. In single entry, he was 60% on. I honestly didn't even consider him for single entry. Like people asked us about cash games. He wasn't a consideration for us there because of the innings limit that he's on. Yeah, that was very, very bizarre, the ownership on Luis Heel. I didn't really understand it.
I've just never, ever, ever understood it. Oh, by the way, DraftKings, I just got a statement from them that just came through because I've got notifications on. We always listen to our customers, and after hearing their feedback, we have decided not to move forward with the gaming tax surcharge.
Nice.
That's cool. Thank God.
That was you know what actually, here's what actually did it. In my opinion, I don't know if you saw this, but earlier today, FanDuel announced that they were not going to do it, which then means that every single other book had put out a statement that we are not going to do it. I think what DraftKings assumed is that once they did it, other books would follow suit. And then once that was not the case, I think they just got to a spot where it was like, hey, we might not be able to hold a market share in these states if we're the only one charging an extra amount here.
I'm going to put on my conspiracy hat. Hang on.
Where'd they announce
Conspiracy hat Eric. Conspiracy hat Eric, okay? I think DraftKings introduced this surcharge to show all the bad publicity to states, to legislators. I think that they did this on purpose in order to show them how against the 20 to 40% increase in taxes they should be in Illinois. I am positive that DraftKings made this semi-calculated, and I'm positive that this was the exact reaction that they were actually looking for.
No, I think they wanted to make extra money. And then no other book followed suit. And they're like, I guess we can't do this. If FanDuel said they were going to do it, I think DraftKings would have done it as well.
No.
All right. Well, you're wearing your Pro V1 hat on sideways. So
it's staying there the rest of the show.
All right.
Remember when I had to look at you in a stupid fucking Cowboys hat?
Idiotic hats on shows. I'm not opposed to it. I've done it before. You know, it's one of the other books that said they weren't going to be doing any kind of tax surcharge. Bet365, the sponsor of today's show. You guys want to know a really easy way to make money? Sign up at Bet365 using the link that we have down below in the description box. All you have to do is place a $10 deposit. You place a $5 bet on anything you like, and they give you $150 in bonus bets. Easy way to help build your bankroll. If you're anybody you know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. Well, I thought you just said you were going to leave it on that way the entire show, and then you changed it.
Yeah, then I couldn't get my headphones on correctly. Got a fat head.
If only it was full of something other than air. If there was brains in there, something that produced just idiotic conspiracy theories. Really be onto something on these programs, Eric. But alas, not the case. Pitching. Let's get into it now. Michael King, nearly 50% owned on the slate. So once again, a lot of ownership going to the high end of pitching, but it's all one guy. So you got Michael King is going to be about half of the field's lineups, 10% ownership to Seth Lugo, 10% ownership to Kevin Gausman. And then the one that makes me laugh, why the hell is Joe Boyle $9,000 on DraftKings? Say, what is going on here?
Joe Boyle rules. Joe Boyle rules.
It's such an odd price.
Joe Boyle rules. It's just moronic. But Michael King is my highest owned pitcher. He should be your highest owned pitcher. He is all of our highest owned pitcher. How do you not like it going up against Pittsburgh? I know San Diego's been a ballpark that I've pointed out. I do think, you know, we're going to continue to see these random home run type games, but nearly a 3 implied total, 75 degrees at first pitch. You go through each one of these guys individually within this lineup, and it just, Michael King's good. I love this guy. I loved him as a reliever with New York. I love that New York tried to extend him and, you know, tried to, hey, we're going to give you a chance to be a starter. And he's kind of ran with it. I mean, 28% K rate, 30.1% hard hit. There is some fly ball tendencies. I think if you're trying to get like super different for tournaments and trying to get a one-off or two, I don't hate the idea of a couple of these lefties, but the guy has a 3.34 ERA, 3.43 expected ERA. You go through some of the individual pitches. He's throwing a sinker less this season, which, is kind of his primary pitch, but it still has a 236 expected batting average against it, 204 actual batting average. So maybe he's getting a little lucky there, but this changeup is so filthy. It's been filthy since he entered the league, and I just don't see any reason that Michael King isn't somebody that you should be prioritizing. He's in 62% of my lineups right now.
He is in 58% of my top 150
Jesus,
lineups.
we're doing this crap again.
Yeah. What was that?
We're doing this crap again. We had like the exact same exposures yesterday.
Sort of. I think we ended up with similar exposure. We didn't on the show though, because
that's true.
Because I was really high on the Rangers and Corey Seager, and you weren't, and then you end up.
I was higher on Corey Seager when it was all said and done.
So the at least one player into the slate, you and I have similar exposures to Michael King. It's hard to get way overweight to the field on him just because he is so popular, but I'm a little bit overweight to Michael King. I think that the ownership on him, it's high. I'm still going to be playing him in single entry. In cash games, he's the biggest no-brainer ever. Play him in cash games over on DraftKings, on FanDuel, where it's a single pitcher site. You're still playing Michael King. He's still going to be really popular there. If you're looking to pivot off of King, Lugo, Gausman, Joe Boyle, still, why the hell is Joe Boyle 9K?
Joe Boyle rules.
Any of these pitchers appealing to you as pivots off of Michael King?
No, I have 8% Kevin Gausman. I kind of want to get to more of him. Kevin Gausman, I've been picking on for a long time now. I mean, some of these numbers, some of the power that he's giving up this season is absolutely egregious. And I do have Logan O'Hoppe on my home run card, so I'm going to be playing him against righties. 235 expected ISO, 197 actual ISO. It's higher than his 210 expected ISO he's giving up to lefties. There's not really any lefties to think about here in the Angels lineup. All of their good bats are from the right side. Nolan Shanuel isn't terrible. Willie Calhoun isn't terrible, but Mickey Moniak went yard yesterday. Congratulations to him for that. Well done, sir. But overall, I think that him and Lugo are just whatever. Minnesota has been awesome here of late. Some of the lefties we have in that lineup, some of them strike out. Matt Wallner obviously is a feast or famine in a lot of different ways, batting third today here. But with no Byron Buxton in the lineup, maybe something where you're looking at fewer strikeouts going to Manuel Margot as opposed to him. So even though there are still some Minnesota bats I can get to against Lugo, I don't find him to be all that appealing to be rostering ad nauseum with a little bit lower strikeout projection than I would have had with Byron Buxton in that lineup.
I don't love any of these other high-end pitchers as pivots. If I'm going to get off of Michael King, it's going to be going a little bit cheaper. If I had to pick one of these guys, though, I guess Kevin Gausman, I'll just bet on the historical talent. But like you, I only have around 10% of Gausman, which is about even with the field. But he is my favorite pivot off of Michael King if we are going to look for an expensive way to get off of him. Let's talk about the 8K range. We've got Eduardo Rodriguez. He's back in the mix now for the Arizona Diamondbacks, who I know you've brought this up recently, Eric. This is a team that's starting to look really good heading into the playoffs. Mm-hmm. The offense is clicking. Corbin Carroll doesn't suck anymore. I don't know what the hell has been.
He was hurt at the beginning of the year. He just was.
So you got Corbin Carroll doesn't suck anymore. Erod is back. We've got Merrill Kelly coming back. Zach Gallen's back. He missed some time early in the year. So this is a team that I think is really going to be a problem for a lot of teams come the playoffs. But for today, Eduardo Rodriguez, $8,700. Good matchup against the Rockies. Charlie Morton, 17% owned. Nestor Cortes, he's your chalk in the 8K range, 26% owned going up against the Chicago White Sox. Then we've got Cutter Crawford at 8K. The first thing I want to ask you is, given what happened with Luis Gil and just the insane ownership that came in on him yesterday, is Nestor Cortes going to end up being more popular than the 26% projected ownership? Do people just think the White Sox are so bad that they're just going to play any pitcher and just jam them aggressively, no matter who it is against Chicago now?
So to be fair, White Sox are that bad. Like they actually are. So I understand what people are looking at. Like, I'm not going to completely besmirch the idea. Like, if you go to, let me just do this. Let's do the last 14 days, because I'm actually curious, because I think they were dead last with like a 37. Yeah, 37 on the dot. WRC plus against left-handed pitching, 77 plate attempts. It is so hard to be that bad in Major League Baseball, even over like a 2-week sample size. But congratulations, the White Sox are. I'm with you where I do think people Based on what we saw with the heel situation yesterday, the Yankees smashed on Sunday. The White Sox are just putrid, and then they just tried to roll that over into Monday and jammed without thinking about it. No, heel can't possibly give up anything here. They just completely looked past the fact that heel had like infinity walks in his last couple games, and that his xFIP has been sitting slightly on the rise for the last month or two. And I think Nestor Cortes, coming off of getting annihilated the last two, I think it'll actually help keep his ownership somewhat in check. And I think Monday, with the blow up we saw from the White Sox putting up double digits for the first time in like, I don't know, years, it feels like, it'll probably keep the ownership in check more than it would have if the Yankees had just gone out and like played to expectation yesterday. But I'm not going to play Nestor Cortes in 26% of lineups. He's currently in 18% for me. I'm okay with that. I'm confused why people don't want to play Cutter Crawford up against Texas today. I know it's a 4.7 implied run total over in Vegas, but Texas is a 90 WRC plus, 90 WRC plus on the season going up against right-handed pitching. And Cutter Crawford's actually pretty good. I'm a little surprised to see this large of a disparity between their ownership. 23% strikeout rate for Cutter Crawford. Yeah, there are some real good bats. Shout out Corey Seager for being an absolute god. And Josh Smith doesn't strike out a lot, sitting there at 20.4% in that lineup. You got the back half of this lineup with Carson Kelly, an acquisition who only strikes out 19% of the time coming from the Tigers. It's not phenomenal for the strikeouts, but like what you're doing is you're getting an 8% Cutter Crawford next to a 26% Nestor Cortes. I just think that's a little bit lopsided. I mean, we have a 10% difference in the top 2 percentage between the two, but I like Cutter Crawford a lot at his price point, at his ownership, in his matchup. The ballpark sucks, obviously, but it's not phenomenal hitting weather in Boston. Do you like Cutter Crawford at all?
He is in none of my top 150 lineups, so that is
Weird.
a negative. A
Wow.
negative for me. I prefer stacking against him. I'm not going to be playing the Rangers as aggressively as I did yesterday. They're not my single entry team today. But given if I have to pick a side, yeah, I'd rather be on the Texas Rangers than to be on Cutter Crawford.
Wow.
There's other pitchers priced around Crawford that I prefer.
Okay, we found our pitching disparity. I currently have 18%. So I have almost the exact same amount of him and Nestor Cortes.
And we did get a question from Clintwood83, wants to know which pitchers we like on DraftKings for cash games. So Michael King's the easy one. For cash games, I would say Nestor Cortes is your second cash game pitcher.
I probably agree with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to go to somebody else,
Kyle Harrison would be my other guy.
I'm
on the over of that game, but like he's 7,400, and I just refuse to play Paul Blackburn in cash against Oakland, so that's cool.
I was saying like maybe Charlie Morton, but Cortes is going to be so much more popular in cash games. For cash games, I can't make a consideration for any pitchers other than Michael King and Nestor Cortes being the duo.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much a foregone conclusion that they would be. We'll get into the Charlie Morton thing because I'm a little bit worried about him.
Well, so I'll ask you, I was going to ask you about Erod's pitch count, but what are your concerns about Charlie Morton other than him being 70 years old and his velocity being down?
That's the whole thing, is the velocity being
Makes
down.
sense.
We saw like 95.5. It's just getting problematic, and the changeup isn't changing. The curveball isn't cutting. The cutter isn't cutting. The sinker isn't sinking. And we're just seeing a lot of different things where I think he's tipping off pitches right now. If you look at his release point, this is kind of a weird nuance thing, but last night I was kind of like, hey, what's going on with Charlie Morton? Feels like he's just kind of spraying it all over the place, but the release point's been pretty consistent. I think there's something going on where he's tipping his pitches. He had 46 pitches in the strike zone last time out of, what was it, a total of 83. So, I mean, that was pretty normal. It wasn't like he was getting into counts like drawn out too much. He just hasn't been pitching very well, and the velocity's down. So for me, that's always concerning. San Francisco, this is a good ballpark to be in. Wind blowing out doesn't really matter because the stadium's built to mitigate it. But I think the San Francisco lineup in its current iteration isn't exactly complete trash. And as such, I'm not going to play Charlie Morton when I think he might be the candidate for pitcher that gets steamed up to a place that we're not necessarily expecting.
I don't know that people are going to be on Charlie Morton. I think if anything,
really,
in that price range, people just play more of Nestor Cortes.
Okay. Yeah, the Erod thing, his pitch count, I have 0%. I can't make a case for an 8,700 guy that I project for 75 pitches. I like Erod a lot. I think the stuff looked all right in his first start, but it's impossible. I'm gonna have 0%, and I think you should too.
Yeah, let's see. What was pulling it up right now? What was the exact amount of pitches he made in that
65,
first
I know
start?
for a fact. 65. I looked at it last night.
65, and he made it through, yeah,
Like
5 and 2/3 innings. I think a lot of people are going to look at him throwing 5 and 2/3 innings, just be like, oh, he's fully stretched out, much like Eric, who's for the streets. So I think that is a mistake, though. The pitch count matters more than how many innings he actually ended up going there, because 5 and 2/3 innings, he's just not going to regularly do that throwing 65 pitches, maybe against the Rockies because they're just total dog shit. But I think what we should be expecting is like 4 or 5 innings out of Erod. Would you agree with everything I just said?
Yes. Except
There we
for
go.
I'm
Eric,
not for the
there's
streets.
not
You
a single
fucking
thing I just said that Eric
heathen.
disagrees with. We're on the same page across the board right there.
I hate you. I really don't like it here.
I didn't really know what it meant because somebody brought it up in the chat. He was saying Eric is for the streets. So I just said yes because I wanted to be agreeable. I went and looked it up. Do you know what this means?
Go ahead and tell me what it means, Greg.
All right. It means that she is a whore. She isn't a girl who remains faithful to one person. She belongs to the streets, a loose girl, sleeping with any and every man she comes across. It's a fair representation.
I can't believe this is my place of employment sometimes.
When do I have to watch that video? When do we watch those videos again? That's still a few months away, right? December, January.
Wow.
And you got to sign the paperwork, which, by the way, we all watched that video start to finish. No doubt about it. Super chat from Jorge Giacomi. And also a shout out to Chris Williams. Chris gifted out, let's see, six YouTube memberships from Chris. Jordan Klein gifted a YouTube membership. So shout out to Jordan. Thank you. We appreciate that. And then Jorge wants to know from us, Eric, who's going to break the slate today, like the Chicago White Sox did and Bowden and Francis? Who breaks the slate?
Jordan Klein, you're dead to me too. You're an accomplice. You're an accomplice in this absolute shenanigan day.
Yeah, that's true. I really blame Jordan as well because Eric could expect it from me, but not from his dear friend Jordan.
Supposed to be on my side.
Yeah, I'm mad at Jordan now too.
Yeah, should be. Who breaks the slate? Are we talking pitching or hitting?
I think both.
Brent
He wants
Rooker.
a pitcher who's going to break this slate, and then an offense. It's not exactly what I worded it, but that's
Oakland.
how I'm
Oakland's going to break the slate for offense, and Boston potentially also for offense. But like me, I think that's a little bit more expected. Oakland or Boston, and then pitching wise, I mean Michael King plus Kyle Harrison. I hate Kyle Harrison as a pitcher, but I think this is a phenomenal spot to like be over 15% Kyle Harrison.
Do people in chat see the AI summary of the show and the things we talk about? It's hilarious.
I really hope not. It's like when Mad TV did the Ebonics thing. It's like, the ridiculous Mad TV skits where, just you can't possibly just read it and not just kind of find somewhat humorous. Eric Street Lindquist. Fuck you, Joseph Cologne.
So there's the AI that just randomly pops up and it gives us descriptions of what's happening on the show, what we're talking about, what people are responding to. So AI just posted, and then it only shows up for like a few seconds, then it goes away. But the AI auto-generated response, it said, viewers are reacting to Eric's strange behavior and speculating about what might happen. They're also joking about his comments and using humorous nicknames for him. And then it says, and Caitlin. I don't know where it got that part from, but AI, I like it. I like the inclusion of AI in content these days. For myself.
Why can't my internet go out on days like today?
Because your internet's in on it too. Everybody's working against you. That guy who came over and fixed your internet plant, set up by Jordan Klein. Thug life. You need a street life graphic, Jordan. Cook it up. Get in the lab, build it.
Oh no.
Let me think. All right, low. So here's part of this too. I mean, if I knew for sure, Jorge, we'd be printing around here. If I knew for sure who was going to be the White Sox, like the 1% owned team that goes and scores a billion runs, or low owned pitcher that scores a whole bunch. Let's see. If I'm just trying to go low owned pitcher, what was your answer? Did you go with Cutter Crawford?
Yeah. No, I didn't go Cutter Crawford. I went Kyle Harrison.
He's not like 1% owned though.
I know he's like 14. You said low owned. I'm not playing any of the like 1 or 2% guys.
I know that's why it's
you
so
have to make
hard
me pick Joe Boyle or Jose Urania or Jonathan Cannon or Carson Fulmer or Luis Ortiz or Zebby Matthews or Austin Gomber. No, thank you.
I guess I'll go Gaussman. He's 9K pitching against the Angels, 10% owned. He's not had a good season. It got off to a really slow start. He self-admittedly said he should have started the year on the injured list as opposed to trying to pitch through an injury. I'll go Gaussman at moderate ownership in a good matchup. As far as stacks go, here's a reasonable one. Here's a stack I'm overweight to that could be very similar to the White Sox stack from yesterday. The Oakland A's going up against Paul Blackburn.
That's what I already said. That was my pick, you dumbass.
And
what are you doing
going to be
here?
on the same page as you. That's
okay.
The only,
Thank you.
I don't know where else you would go for a really low owned stack that has leverage. Paul Blackburn.
I look forward to the day that somebody that I'm on a show with listens to me. One time, dealer.
I'm agreeing
one
with
time.
you, though. I can't agree with you. I have to.
Oh yeah, you can agree with me.
I mean, if you want, I could just attack you the whole show.
That's what I feel like. So it's okay. That'd be a normal show.
All right. Viewers are discussing a baseball player named Eric who's currently pitching. All right, a little bit of a miss by the
Eric Fetty. Fetty. He's not on the slate, but he's pitching today. I like the under 5.5 strikeouts over on DK Pick 6. Jammed it a lot of places.
Let's get back to talking about the rest of the pitchers.
Let's do it.
And we've talked about a lot of the guys in the 8K range that we are potentially interested in. I do think that Nestor Cortez overall makes the most sense in this pricing range. Let's talk the cheap guys, though. In the 7K range here, Eric, Carson Fulmer, Zebby Matthews, Colin Ray, Paul Blackburn, Kyle Harrison, Gavin Stone. There's only 2 pitchers pulling ownership in this price range. Paul Blackburn, 22% owned. Kyle Harrison, 15% owned. I really do agree with you. I don't think Paul Blackburn should have nearly double the ownership of Kyle Harrison. Not quite double, but it's like 1.5x the ownership of Kyle Harrison. I prefer Harrison to Paul Blackburn. I think he's a better pitcher, more strikeout upside. I don't even know the matchup is all that more difficult for Kyle Harrison because the Oakland A's offense has really not been terrible over the last couple of months. How they're doing it, very weird. Have you looked at the Oakland A's, the ages of the players in their farm system? It is dog shit. No. How this team is so bad and they have one player that's a ranked prospect in the organization. Even the hitters that are going well for them, like Brent Rooker, like not young guys. The only one who is Lawrence Butler is 22 or 23. But I don't think the Oakland A's offense is all that terrible. The Atlanta Braves, we know how many injuries they have. Like the Braves offense is still better than Oakland. Just the gap isn't as much as what people perceive. And then you consider the park factors with the game being played at San Francisco. I'd rather be overweight to the field on Kyle Harrison, underweight to the field on Paul Blackburn. That seems where you're at on this as well, Eric.
Yes.
Are there any other pitchers you like in this 7K range? None of the other ones are pulling ownership. Like some people are playing Gavin Stone, but not really all that significant. Kyle Harrison is really the one contrarian pitcher for cheap that I do think makes some semblance of sense. Now, he's not like 2% owned or anything, but still a 14.9% projected ownership. I think he should be more popular than that. Anybody else you're getting to in the 7K range?
Nope. Kyle Harrison's the guy. I'm looking at the other pieces and like, I don't see a piece like Gavin Stone. I hope he pitches okay against Milwaukee. I'm on the Dodgers for pretty considerable penny, but Paul Blackburn, I have a little bit of. I don't love that ownership. I'm more inclined to just kind of flip flop that. Give me Kyle Harrison around 23, 24%. Give me Paul Blackburn around 12, 13, 14%, and I'll move on with my day. And then Zebby Matthews, I think he's okay. He doesn't walk as many guys there in the old AAA and working through some of his stuff. I think he's somebody you can take a shot or two on, but like, there's no doubt the Kansas City is not the best matchup to walk into here for your first start. Can't imagine the leash is going to be super long on him here. I'm not a huge fan working through his stuff.
And all these punt options are dog shit. Luis
Yep.
Ortiz, no thank you. Jonathan Cannon, absolutely no thank you. Austin Gomber, no thank you. Jose Urania, sure, he hasn't been as bad this year as other years, but still, no thank you. He's going to be bad going forward. I can't make a case for any of these cheap pitchers. I can't believe Austin Gomber is 5% owned, that people are actually clicking that name. There's nothing of interest to me down here.
Yeah, don't do drugs, kids.
Well, you should, but don't play these cheap pitchers.
Do recreational, but not bad recreational drugs, kids.
Yeah, like a little bit of heroin here and there. Just don't overdo it. Just a little bit.
Not a lot, baby girl, just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Nothing wrong with heating the spoon up from time to time. You just don't want to make it a habit.
Bet 365.
Anything else you want to talk about a pitcher on DraftKings?
Really don't. This feels really straightforward. It's been a pretty straightforward 2 days of pitching. Yesterday, we couldn't have nailed that a whole lot better. Being way underweight to Luis Heel and that ridiculousness ended up working out really, really nicely. Michael King's a really good option. I'm not playing 100% of him. I'm playing him at a rate just short of 2/3 of my lineups, mixing in a couple of calculated pieces like Cutter Crawford, like Kyle Harrison, but like I really don't like the punts. Really, really don't like the punts. And then 7-8% Eduardo Rodriguez. I hope he's like 10% for no reason, because that would be the worst play of the year.
All right, let's go ahead and look at the pitching on the FanDuel side of things. Then I'm also going to pull up Discord. There weren't any questions other than the cash game question that we got before. See if anything else popped up. Nope, not quite yet. But if you guys have any questions for us, or if you want us to plug one of your lineups into single lineup simulator, hit us up with that, because Jordan could start plugging some of those in. I saw you do one before. Was that for a Cap and Akella, Jordan? All right. Yeah. So if you have any other ones that people have submitted,
cool.
You could start plugging those in and we will review some of those lineups. FanDuel side of things here, Eric. And yeah, we talked about the cash game considerations. Michael King, you don't really have to think too much about it. He's $9,800. That's a reasonable price tag relative to how other pitchers have been priced on FanDuel. He's 30% projected owned. Cash games, you're playing him. For GPPs, though, Eric, if you're building one tournament lineup over on FanDuel, do you play the chalky Michael King, or do you go in another direction?
Yeah, I'm not playing FanDuel today, but if I were, I would be playing Michael King. If I were making one lineup, I think I would get different with offense. 3.4 opposition total, way better than the next guy on the slate, who's Nestor Cortez, and I actually have some White Sox interest yet again. I think I saw you and I were both up there on the Minimax stuff with a couple of White Sox stacks. I mean, I ended up getting a little bit more at the very, very end. Yesterday, I had like 2-3%, and then ended up around 5% in that last run. That was fun. I'm going to have a little bit of that there. I don't think Nestor Cortez, though, is a leverage strikeout consideration next to Michael King, who I have for a lot more strikeouts than Nestor Cortez. If I were trying to get different, I'd be going to Kyle Harrison on FanDuel, 4.7% ownership, positive leverage in the top pitchers tool. And I think just a great ballpark to be pitching in against an Atlanta team that has some, pretty decent bats. We've seen that routinely this season where, they're going to strike out. They're also going to fail a lot, but there's no doubt that they're a pretty good lineup. And in fact, we just got that lineup as we're talking about it. Soler leading off. I expected that. Riley, Ozuna, Olsen, Darno, Arcia, Laureano, Whitfield, Merrifield, and White. They just jammed all righties and then one lefty there in Olsen. So exactly the kind of way I expected it to roll out. 8 righties, not ideal for Harrison, but I would still take that shot over on FanDuel.
I don't mind it. 4.6% projected owned. I mean, if I was building a bunch of lineups on FanDuel, I would still play the chalk and Michael King and be a little bit of a chalk donkey. Nestor Cortez at 12% ownership, I do think that's a number to be overweight to. I'm just kind of skeptical after what happened with Luis Heel yesterday that Cortez actually only ends up being 12% owned. So I don't have really anything else to add other than I agree with you. I think Kyle Harrison, if you're looking to be contrarian, 4.6% projected ownership. We know the kind of strikeout upside he has. He's the contrarian one that stands out the most to me on FanDuel. Kevin Gausman also is worth consideration, but he's double the ownership of Kyle Harrison. So I'd rather just play Harrison for the cheaper price point, the lower ownership. And then also, if you're playing Kyle Harrison on FanDuel and you decide you really want to play like a chalky Yankee stack, you don't have to worry all that much about it because you play Kyle Harrison. Your lineup is already kind of different there. Anything else you want to talk about at all pitching here, Eric?
I do not believe so. I think we've covered it pretty in depth. Another slate that, I mean, we don't have the same strikeout arms we had yesterday. I think that is pretty well noted here. I think you can take some shots in that mid-range on certain pieces. Again, Cutter Crawford's going to be my path. Kyle Harrison as well. Trying to get a little bit of Kevin Gausman. I had 8%. I'm going to try to get maybe a little bit more. His ownership just came up in our last run of ownership. He's around 12% now. That's pretty nominal. I think against the Angels, we'll still try to identify somebody who could run into some more strikeouts because we don't have that many here. Whereas yesterday, it was just a question of like, oh, well, what's Luis Seal's ownership actually going to be? And it was way higher. Glad that we ended up on the sale on the Snell side of things on that one. Michael King feels like that kind of a jam as well today.
All right, let's plug some lineups into the single lineup simulator. I see Jordan's already simming one out here. Whose lineup is this, Jordan Klein?
Rennenbaum. Yeah, our dude.
Okay, Ryan Rennenbaum. That's good that you speak Jordan because I have trouble translating him sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, Ryan Rennenbaum. So Ryan's lineup here looks like a killer. It's got a 51% expected ROI. The lineup he built, it's got so it's a FanDuel lineup. He played Paul Blackburn at pitcher. Blackburn, I don't love Blackburn. I do think he's more viable on FanDuel than DraftKings though, just considering how much lower owned he is. And then the other,
it's DraftKings lineup.
Oh, is it? Okay, I only saw the one pitcher there.
It's okay.
All right, so DraftKings
First
lineup.
show? That's fine.
All right, so I personally do not love Paul Blackburn. Our data apparently does here, though. And then, all right, so Michael King in the lineup. And then what is this, a Diamondbacks Yankees stack?
Yeah, I'm not a big Paul Blackburn stan today.
Yeah, it's very chalky lineup. Very, very chalky. But hey, data likes it. Data doesn't have an issue with all the ownership that's going to be in that lineup. If you look at our top stacks tool, it is true that we do have, and I'm going to refresh to make sure I'm looking at the most recent ownership. Even though the Yankees are projected to be really popular, we do have them projected as under-owned, 13% projected ownership, 15% chance to be a top scoring team. In large field GPPs, I do think the Yankees warrant a lot of attention, a lot of exposure. I do feel differently about them in single entry, though, where they're probably going to be like 25 to 30% owned or something like that. We saw yesterday the Yankees were really popular in single entry. The Diamondbacks were insane. Their catcher yesterday was like 50% owned in some contests. Josh Bell was like 40% owned. So the ownership on some of these value teams as well as the Yankees, because here's how people are going to build their lineups. It's going to be Michael King. It's going to be one cheaper pitcher, probably Nestor Cortez, but then also some Charlie Morton lineups. There'll be some Paul Blackburn, some Kyle Harrison, but to a lesser extent. And then people are going to jam the Yankees. And then I think either the Toronto Blue Jays or Arizona Diamondbacks for value. I think that's how people are going to approach single entry for today. So with that in mind, I don't want to go to a really, really popular Yankee stack, at least not for single entry. Large field GPPs, different story. For single entry, Eric, which team is catching your eye the most? Is it the Yankees? Is it somebody else?
It is none other than the Oakland Athletics. I don't know how it wouldn't be Oakland up against Paul Blackburn pulling this kind of ownership. I don't quite understand it. I mean, the top of this Oakland lineup has been performing for quite some time now. We have not crazy power from lefties going up against Paul Blackburn. I mean, Lawrence Butler's pretty decent, and Paul Blackburn's been good against that side. But I brought this up yesterday. Paul Blackburn with some of these reverse splits with the expected ISO and ISO numbers he has against them, it's just ridiculous. I mean, Brent Rooker, my highest owned batter on the entire freaking slate right now, and he's like not even owned. This is like a 4% owned stack. Give me all the righties. 201 expected ISO up against Paul Blackburn, 227 ISO on the season, and Rooker a 307 expected ISO against right-handed pitching with 20 home runs against. Yeah. Give me them. Give me Shea Langoliers. Give me Andujar. Give me Blade. Give me everybody at the top of this Oakland lineup. They're my single entry lineup.
It's a consideration for me. I think what I'm ultimately going to be going to, though, is the Boston Red Sox. I like the matchup against Jose Urena. I do not think they're going to be pulling a ton of ownership in single entry. I think that people are more apt to go to the Yankees, the Diamondbacks, the Blue Jays, like I just laid out. Here's another thing that really stands out to me about this game, though. Jose Urena, easy matchup that the Rangers and that the Red Sox are going to be getting against the Rangers. But also, look at the status of Texas's bullpen going into today. Yes. Which I assume the Red Sox shouldn't have issues getting through Jose Urena. If they do, then whatever. My entire lineup's fucked anyway. But yesterday, Tyler Mahle only pitches 4 2/3 innings, and then the game goes into extra innings. The Rangers really had to exhaust their bullpen. Yates pitched an inning and 2/3. They also had Robertson pitch 1 1/3 innings. So they had to use some of their high leverage bullpen arms, which I assume they probably aren't going to be available today. If Boston gets up to a big lead against Jose Urena, this is one of these scenarios where you get a potential for a position player to pitch.
Yeah, it would be awesome. I mean, yeah, Kirby Yates, that was an exciting game. It was on ESPN last night. I was watching it with my wife. She hates Kenley Jansen, so whenever he comes on the screen, she is just screaming at the TV for him to get lit up. He had a good ninth, so he was able to get out of that. I think it was either the eighth or ninth that he came in. Yeah, it was the ninth. But Kirby Yates had to pitch extra. Like, that was the big thing that stood out to me about that one too. And then Jose Urena's pitched decently well this season, but there is no doubt that the underlying numbers and everything else, this is just a mirage. This has been one of the worst starters in baseball. Somebody that when he was in Colorado, when he was with Detroit, we've been targeting ad nauseum. And still this year, despite like quote unquote decent enough surface numbers, we've got a 41.6% hard hit, only a 15.5% K rate. And Boston, best team in baseball against right-handed pitching over the last 30 days by a pretty considerable margin. Masataka Yoshida, David Hamilton. Again, it doesn't help to have Jarren Duran, who's been the best lefty in that lineup for the last 30 days. Devers is the best lefty overall, so there's still decent enough stuff there. But there's no doubt that Boston is a team that I was going to be at or above the field on, so I'm completely with you.
Yeah. And I mean, I would like them against Urena, even if it wasn't for the bullpen situation that is going to be happening as a result of yesterday, but it's just like an added bonus to the entire spot. So yeah, Boston Red Sox, that's who I'm playing in single entry, actually uploading my lineups right now as we talk through it. For large field GPPs, Eric, which team are you going to have the most exposure to overall?
New York Yankees.
It's the Yankees for me as well. It's close. There are a few teams that are close for me. And once again, they're all popular stacks, but the ownership is spread out enough in large field GPPs. And we do have the Yankees being under-owned in our top stacks tool, where I don't really see it as that much of an issue. But the 3 teams I have the most exposure to in large field GPPs, it's the Blue Jays, the Yankees, and the Diamondbacks. They're all going to be popular, but not like insanely popular. I mean, 8% ownership isn't that much of an issue for me on a lot of these slates. And I do think that the Diamondbacks as well as the Blue Jays, those are the 2 best value stacks on the entire slate. Just a little bit too popular for me in single entry. Are there any cheap value stacks that you're really liking for today? Do you like the ownership on Toronto and Arizona? Or are you looking elsewhere for cheap?
I love the White Sox today. I know this isn't even just like recency bias. This is just Nestor Cortez. He has not been nearly as sharp this season. It's been pretty apparent. I also think there's some decent enough stuff here. You get a value team, no doubt about it. Nobody is expensive. Luis Robert is, 4.4K. You get Vaughn at 4.4K, but everybody else is like sub 3K at the top of this lineup. 2.4K for Sosa, 2.8K for Benintendi, 2.9K for Sheets, 2.3K for Lee. Vargas is 2.6K with multi-positional eligibility. I think the White Sox are a team that you should be going into some of those batters and just giving them a little bit of a boost. I know that it just locked, but pick 6. I mean, Andrew Vaughn was at 4.5 fantasy points, and I've got him nearly at 10. This is a White Sox team that I have a ton as secondary 2 and 3 mans. I think it makes some of these Dodgers that I want to get to, that's a lower owned team going up against Milwaukee. I really like just getting to the fully operational Death Star. Colin Rea has been one of the luckiest pitchers in baseball, not remotely close, in fact, with some of his peripheral numbers. Yeah, I really do think the White Sox are a team that you should. It's not anything to do with yesterday. They were my best lineup. They were most people's best lineup yesterday, putting up 12 runs. But I think they work really well today up against a chalky pitcher in Nestor Cortez.
Got a super chat here from Corey Bomber. He says Yankees, D-backs, LA, Phillies money line parlay plus 500. No, thank you.
What were
you're
the
just
teams?
taking a bunch of big favorites that are not as likely to win as what their odds are, and then you're combining them together. Don't place like that.
Yeah, I play a lot of I think people have realized this because there's days like yesterday where you get steamrolled, but I didn't even have Yankees. I didn't have it. Like I'm more inclined to be taking shots on dogs when you see numbers start to dip in certain spots. Or I mean, I say that knowing full well like Baltimore and the Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers are like minus 115, minus 120. So I guess that's not like crazy, but I'm generally looking at taking shots at some of those dogs. I've never been a 2 or 3 favorites parlay, and that's what you see the most over on twitter.com, don't be one of those people, because it's just really, really hard long-term to be profitable doing that.
Yeah, another issue with a lot of those lines too is the bigger a money line favorite usually is, the more vig there is there, the more juice there is. So it also makes it even harder to find value on some of those spots. So
Great point.
the big money line favorites in general, probably ones you want to stay away from. Let's see, if we look at every team in the MLB against the money line, I will bet you that like those big market teams like the Yankees, the Dodgers, they probably have the worst money line records in the league.
Yeah, I that's part of my thing right now is I'm just shocked that Mookie Betts comes back in some of these Dodgers lines. I mean, these numbers were so inflated. Like in this exact matchup back in April, if it was Gavin Stone, Colin Ray, you would see minus 150 on the Dodgers side of things. To see minus 115, minus 120 is a little bit concerning to me. I know that, you know, the bullpen situation isn't as tight, but like Michael Kopech has been a top 10 reliever since he got acquired by the Dodgers. That should surprise absolutely no one. 2 years ago, Michael Kopech was one of the best bullpen arms. I like the Dodgers a lot here. Just if you're looking for one favorite on the card to be adding, but please play them individually. Do not get in the habit of putting together lots of these parlays, because you're just throwing money away long term. I know it might look cool for a day or two when you hit a plus 500, plus 600, but yeah, stick to some straight bets, please, for the love of God.
All right, so I've got the run line records for all of the teams here. All right, so if we look at the run line records and then the plus minus on all
Are these
of
closing
them,
lines, or are these just like best available?
I think this is on
Closing
the
lines.
closing line. The Yankees have actually been neutral this year, but still, if it's neutral, you're losing money on them when you're betting. The teams that have actually been the most negative on the run line, this would make sense if you thought about it. The team that's been the most disappointing overall this year, the Atlanta Braves, they have the worst run line record of in the entire year relative to what the odds are. They're negative 0.8 runs. That is egregiously terrible.
That's really hard to do.
The best teams, this is actually kind of fun. Which teams do you think are the 3 best in baseball against the run line?
So I'm guessing it's just like a surprisingly good team at the top of the board. I would say, I mean, part of me wants to say Oakland, but they've only been decent for the last like
They're
month
third.
and a half or so. Oh, they are. Okay, they made it in.
Yep.
So I was going to say they probably are top 5, but all right. So Oakland's third. I mean, I usually look at this stuff like, you know, once a week, but
while you're thinking about it, I'll give you just like a hint to figure this out. Which teams are way better now than they were expected to be before the season started?
Seattle, but Seattle was expected to be good. That can't be them. Plus, they're not in a high variance ballpark, so I think that probably neutralizes
Seattle's towards the bottom of the league. Seattle
That's
actually
what I would
was expected to have one of the best. Seattle's underperformed this year. They're expected to have a better record than what they have.
Yeah, I mean, they're still decent, but yeah, it also comes down to like variance of the ballpark. When you see a ballpark where 7.5 totals as opposed to like 11.5 totals, but teams that are way better than they were expected to be. At the top of that list has to be Kansas City.
Yep, Kansas City second.
And then Cleveland is probably up there.
They not in the top 3.
Okay, but they're up there.
They are 6th, though.
So Kansas City, and then third was
Oakland. Kansas City was second. You're missing the number 1 team in baseball. Team that has been wildly above expectations.
Wildly above expectations. I mean, I'm just, of course, having a brave fart about this. It's not Baltimore. They were expected to be good.
Because I know I have a bet on it. Their over-under win total at the opening line was 76.5.
Not my Twins. That would be egregious.
Not your Twins.
Just AL East,
Twins were
AL Central.
If I remember correctly.
Just AL or NL. Just
NL.
Help me out. NL. All right. Way better than expected. Not San Diego. Not LA. Not
San Diego's close, but not them.
Just going around the ballparks here. We got St. Louis. They're terrible. Relative to expectations, they've been better. The Mets have improved, but not there.
Everybody in chat's got it already.
Oh, they did? Brewers?
Yeah, the Brewers.
Okay. Cool.
The Brewers were like, the Brewers were like plus 700 to win the division. They were like plus 300 to make the playoffs.
Wild.
The win total was 76.5. And they've one of the best records in baseball. So it's the Brewers. The Brewers, Brewers 1, KC 2, Oakland 3. Anyway, a long way around.
That was fun though. It's a fun thing. There's 9 games. It's honestly pretty easy to break down. We talked about my favorite stacks. Is there anybody that you find to be appealing on the cheap end? Like the under-owned end?
Not that we haven't already talked about. Mentioned before, I agree with you. Oakland, that seemed to be overweight too. I have 7% Oakland stacks, about double the field on them. I have some Chicago White Sox stacks, not all that many though. Like if I'm looking to really be contrarian on the low end, it's going to be Oakland. I also like the leverage that they're bringing. And then as far as teams that I get double-digit exposure to in large field GPPs, it's the Yankees, the Blue Jays, the Diamondbacks, the Red Sox, those 4.
Gotcha. Yep. Cool.
Any other considerations for stacks that are important to you that we haven't talked about yet?
Nah, I think we pretty much covered it. Again, the White Sox, a team that I'm playing a lot of secondary. I think Arizona has a chance to get steamed up here against Gomber. I mean, they're already the 4th most popular team. And we just got Toronto's lineup. It has Springer back. So Springer's back in action at the top of the lineup. Varsho, Guerrero, Horwitz. And then it just looks just so bad at the bottom half of this. Jimenez, I know when Yard yesterday, Loperfido, Servin, and Wagner, like these dudes, like what are we even doing? But yeah, Servin going to be out there catching today.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the ownership projections we have, Yankees pulling 13% ownership, and there's not even another team that's above 9% projected ownership. You got the Blue Jays and the Red Sox. They're a little bit over 8. You got the Diamondbacks right around 8. The Dodgers are pulling 7% ownership. You got the Mets 6% owned against a very expensive Joe Boyle, who's expensive for no reason at all. So as far as the ownership goes in large field GPPs, I don't have an issue with any of it. Really, I think the teams that are popular for good reason, and I don't think they're too highly owned either. The only exception to that is I think the Yankees will be too popular in single entry, but clearly the team that's expected to score the most runs. If you guys are playing cash games today, yeah, I think you want to play Nestor Cortez. I think you want to play for sure, obviously Michael King, and then you want to get as many Yankees bats into that lineup as you possibly can. Are there any offenses that you view as being over-owned that you're avoiding because of their ownership?
Not really today, not the way that we were so against the Yankees yesterday. And boy, were they popular and boy, did they fail. It was beautiful. But I would say the one that I'm probably the most underweight to relative to where they're at is Toronto. I just don't find the bottom half of that lineup to be anything. It's very unproven, very weak. It's a decent enough spot there in Anaheim. It's not a good bullpen. Well, it's a decent enough bullpen behind, not like crazy terrible. Carson Fulmer, pretty bad himself, but I think 8-9% of them, I'm underweight to that here at the moment, but I don't have like any crazy stand against it. I guess I'm a little bit surprised to see Kansas City not more popular. I think that would be another team that I'm just a little bit heavier on. I do have more Bobby Witt, a little bit more of some like guys as 2 and 3 mans as well within that one, rather than just full 5 mans. Melendez is up there batting 5th. Furman batting 6th there. They don't have, like any like major like black holes where I can't play anybody 1 through 9 there. Not like something I'm crazy against, but maybe Maikel Garcia, considering he's 4.5K batting 8th, but nobody's going to play him either. So he's going to have low ownership. I'm okay getting to Kansas City here a little bit above the field, but nothing that I'm vehemently against on today's slate.
Let me just double check to make sure no other late questions came in. And here we've got Cream said, it just says the Mets. What is this in context of? Just says the Mets. All right. So do I have Mets lineup? No, I didn't. I don't actually. None of my top 150 lineups are Mets stacks. I don't like the Mets today.
You don't like the Mets. Yeah, I'm not a big Mets guy either today. Because
and
I mean,
I don't like Joe Boyle on the other side of the game either. But still, I think there's better spots to be targeting than the Mets. Other teams in much easier matchups. I mean, not that Joe Boyle is great or anything like that, but like I'd rather pick on Jose Urena or Austin Gomber or Carson Fulmer or Jonathan Cannon. Then Mr. Poolcam wants to know our favorite stacks for the FanDuel side of things. So I'd say the one thing that's most different about FanDuel relative to DraftKings is I don't have a desire to stack the Oakland A's on FanDuel because you're not getting the leverage off of Blackburn. And that's the main reason for me wanting to stack the Oakland A's on DraftKings. You're getting leverage off of really popular Paul Blackburn. So If we're looking at FanDuel, the one thing that's also different other than the Oakland A's, the Yankees are 17% owned, which is making them rate out quite a bit differently than what their ownership is on DraftKings. They actually are our most negatively leveraged team in the top stack still over on FanDuel. Red Sox are also a little bit more popular on FanDuel, 10.4% owned. If I was building one lineup on FanDuel, I would be stacking the San Diego Padres against Luis Ortiz, Eric.
I totally get that. Padres, I was pretty heavy on yesterday. They didn't go very well. Pretty much both late games were, well, all the late games were pretty brutality, but yeah, probably would be the Padres in that spot. Luis Ortiz is not good at all, Bob.
Yeah, and we've talked a little bit about Luis Ortiz and some of his other starts in the last, I don't know, month or whatever it's been. If you look at the overall numbers for Luis Ortiz, they're not poor this year. They look pretty solid. He's got a 3.4 ERA, a 4.09 expected ERA. The problem, though, is he did most of that work out of the bullpen. And we've seen in previous years, Luis Ortiz has pretty good stuff. But when he's been a starter, it just doesn't translate all that well. So he's predominantly a starter last year. He had a 4.78 ERA and a 6.86 expected ERA. So what happens? He's got a big arm. He throws really hard. He's got good stuff. He pitched well last year, and the Pirates go, you know what? Let's try him back as a starter. Sorry, they said, let's try him as a reliever instead of a starter. And it goes really well for him as a reliever. And then because it's going well, they go, let's try him as a starter again. And it's been a disaster since he moved back into a starting role. So I just don't think that he's built to be a starting pitcher. I don't think that's what his role is going to be next year, but at least for tonight, he's going to be a starting pitcher, and I don't expect it to go all that well. So, yeah, Padres are only 5% owned over on FanDuel, and the more popular teams are steamed a little bit higher on FanDuel. Like mentioned, the Yankees being 17% owned, Red Sox 10.5% owned. So Padres, relative to their ownership, my favorite FanDuel stack. Anything else you want to shout out as far as the FanDuel side of things goes?
It's weird. Yesterday I played quite a bit of FanDuel, broke even over there, did pretty well on DK. Part of that just not having any White Sox over on FanDuel, but I think the Yankees are going to end up more popular. We've kind of seen this the last couple slates now where the Yankees are massive chalk on FanDuel, and I think they will be again today, but I think I'll stay away from New York and Boston. If I were playing any FanDuel there, I think that I'd be looking at going that direction. I would be working down the board there. We do see the Dodgers and Toronto a little bit more popular. Again, you're just isolating out maximum 4 bats. So it makes sense that they're pulling a little bit more ownership because you don't have to play some thin, veiled piece of value just to have a 5-man to throw together. You don't get any value that you really need over there. Michael King's not crazy expensive. So I see the Dodgers being more popular there. But Kansas City, want to point them out again, going up against Zebby Matthews. I know he's been a AA, but AAA has been very unkind to him. I think Kansas City probably going to be a team that I'm leveraged on both. Again, if I were playing FanDuel, I would be leveraged on both of them there. But DK, I'm also making that same pretty aggressive stand on a number of those bats.
All right. If you guys haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and hit us up in chat. Let us know who you guys are picking to homer today. But yeah. Eric, for today, who are you going with your homer pick? I think either you or I have hit on a homer for like a lot of days in a row. I feel like it's been where I know you were carrying us for a while. You went like a whole week where all of yours hit. And then I went on Corey Seager yesterday. He ended up homering. And I thought yesterday's slate was going to end up being a disaster when Corey Seager got caught stealing home in the first inning. I was like, well, there's no way this ends up going well. But things really turned around once he homered. So do it again, Eric. Who's homering today?
Well, that was all you yesterday. That was beautiful stuff. My guy, Matt Wallner, did not want to make contact with a baseball yesterday, which was a little bit sad. But Brent Rooker, he's been, the cleanup hitter for a while. He's been batting second to last two, kind of in the Mike Trout number 2 hole. The analytics tell you that's where he should be batting. The guy's absolutely incredible. He gets Paul Blackburn, who's a little bit chalky. 307 expected ISO against righties. Paul Blackburn giving up more power to righties, strikes out way fewer righties. I don't know how it's anybody other than him. He was plus 390 earlier in the day when I got it over on FanDuel. He's now plus 350. I still absolutely love it. And from a DFS perspective, my highest owned one-off, Brent Rooker, goes yard.
Vladdy. I'm going with Vladdy Jr., who I think has been my most commonly picked player to hit a home run over the course of the last couple of years. He's going to homer again for us today. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., that's the home run pick in chat. Let's see what we have here. We've got, scrolling all the way up, Malukar leading it off for us. Malukar is going with Rooker and Doyle to homer today. We've got Giancarlo Stanton from Anthony Harris. And then we've got Masataka Yoshida from Kyle Gentry. We've got Merrill as the pick by both Michael Kennedy as well as Pierre and Piojo YT. I assume that's YouTube. So yeah, Jackson Merrill, three people in a row picked Merrill to homer today.
Jesus.
And yeah, I mean, he's been the best offensive rookie in baseball this year. And I know Eric said, could he challenge Paul Skeens for the
dude? Did you look at the line today?
I scoffed at him about it, but the betting odds are tightening up there. It's getting kind of close between the two of them.
Told you.
We've got Josh Bell from Taco 933, Blade and Rooker from J Lovelady. Rooker, the pick from BX44. So everybody's either picking Brent Rooker or Jackson or Merrill. Like those are the only two picks, Merrill or Rooker. That's what everybody in chat has gone with so far. Ricardo Nelson, Pete Alonso. We've got Ross going with Oswaldo Cabrera, Adamas from Hayes, JJ Blade from Doug Dobbs, Aaron Judge from Corey Bomber. Marcus Semien is the pick from, where'd it go? I saw Marcus Semien and then my thing scrolled really quick. Somebody picked Marcus Semien. Who was it? There it is. Benny Levine had Marcus Semien. Juan Soto from Chris Williams. Tyler Fitzgerald from Chris Beck. We've got another Merrill pick from Gary M. We've got Shohei Ohtani from Obi-Wan. Boy, all these people are taking the home run picks that Jordan Klein is planning on making. Sotex is going with Eugenio Suarez. We've got Ramos from Riggs25, Adolis Garcia from Clintwood83. Jake DeWitt is also going with Eugenio Suarez. We've got Willie Adames from Francisco Rubio, Gavin Lux from Flim Flam Man, Corey Seager from Mr. Mike Diaz, Pete Alonso from Robert Grease, another Eugenio Suarez pick, this one from Reg Kell, Rafael Devers from Joseph Colon. Jordan, bring it home. Who's homering tonight?
I'll take the shortstop on the Padres.
All right, so we have got Jordan going with, is Ha-Seong Kim? I'm trying to remember the Padres lineup. Is Ha-Seong Kim starting today?
Yes, he is.
All right. Ha-Seong Kim, that is going to be the pick by Jordan. He's going off.
Look at that. I tried to give you him yesterday and he did nothing.
So guys, thank you very much for watching. If you want to sign up for any of the packages we have here at Stokastic, sign up using the links down below in the YouTube description box. If you haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck with your lineups tonight. See you back here tomorrow.